So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big tonight.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Located in the heart of Los Angeles, one of the most culturally diverse cities in the U.S., Children's Hospital Los Angeles welcomes children and families from all over the world. With over 350 pediatric specialty programs and services, Children's Hospital Los Angeles is consistently ranked among the top programs by U.S. News and World Report. Our physicians include nationally and internationally renowned experts in their fields, working alongside our care teams, all with a single mission: to do everything we can to create hope and build a healthier future for your child. Home to the Saban Research Institute at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, the finest minds in the world come together to drive discoveries and find leading-edge cures for children everywhere. Here, your child comes first. Every aspect of our hospital is designed with patients and families in mind, from X-ray machines that use less radiation to play spaces that let your child be a child. We understand your child's health condition might lead you to seek the best care outside your own country. That's why Children's Hospital Los Angeles' Center for Global Health is here to help. We are your home away from home. The Center for Global Health offers international families one point of contact to facilitate seamless, culturally sensitive care for hundreds of children from more than 75 countries. It's a place of hope, healing, and compassion. Children's Hospital Los Angeles, creating hope and building healthier futures around the world.
Crap, I got a squad on my right.
Running in for backup.
Yo, Ron, he's right there in front of you.
Sorry guys, it happened again.
Damn, that's the 10th one today.
All right, I'm back.
Someone cover me.
Got him, you got him. Yo, that's sweet.
Yeah, it is. We about to win this.
I can get used to this.
HyperX Alloy. Built strong because it has to be.
I am your host and moderator, Ruben Caputo. Well-being. But before I introduce our special guest, we have a couple of quick announcements, and that is to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. As you may note, we have various social media outlets and platforms for you to engage with. All that you do in following us and leaving a like and comment and feedback, all that helps tremendously. It's why we're able to do this. Also, I'd like to take a moment as we have dedicated all of our streams to the Extra Life Foundation in an effort to help the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. All of your in-kind donations are greatly appreciated, and you can find it in the phone that you see here is the HyperX Quadcast HX Mic QC, where you can find in the link and descriptions below as well. All right, without any further ado, we have Monique Turner, one of our very own, who comes from our psychology department here at Cal State Dominguez Hills, joining us today. Monique, thank you for being with us. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And today's topic is very key and enlightening too, that I don't think we hear much of, quite honestly. And when we think about health and wellness, I mean, it could really fall on a range of things, but I know today is going to be centered on essentially keeping the side in this well-balanced space. And love to hear more about what you have to share. And if you could provide us some insights.
Yeah. So a little bit about my background. It's in the area of psychology, specifically looking at positive psychology, such as character strengths, focusing on motivation or courage, kind of looking at what we do right in life. And so I think that really has a lot to do with emotion regulation, because once you're able to kind of identify your passions and your strengths and your interests, such as gaming, I think you're able to kind of internalize your own skills to nurture, to develop more. And so within that, sometimes when we're in a environment by ourselves, right, especially during the pandemic, we've been by ourselves, some isolated more than others. And so I think our emotions have adapted to that scenario and that situation. But now we're transitioning to reopening again and connecting with others and going back to what was normal, if that's even the case. And so really understanding our triggers, what are some of our thoughts that we're having, and really understanding the difference between it being healthy and unhealthy. We can have unhealthy emotions, unhealthy thoughts that don't lead to motivating us. And then we can have healthy thoughts and healthy emotions that do motivate us to pursue our goals and to just kind of connect with others. And so I try to stay away from the negative, because negative can be good as well, but is it healthy? And so really understanding the definition of healthy and how it can help to motivate you to change different things that you wish in your life, or just to connect better with yourself and with your family and friends.
Gosh, thank you for sharing that, and well said. I think I took away a lot of notes there. And I love that you shared, again, focusing on the positive psychology side, right? What can it do? And ultimately, if you're listening out there, and perhaps you may consider yourself a competitive gamer, I think in some cases, when we're trying to find that motivation, where do we spawn that from, right? Is it encouragement that really helps? Is it sometimes harsh talking? And what we've learned from what harsh talking can do, some will say, well, it's elevating my level of play. But in reality, I think in the long term, you're going to be prone to being used to being talked that way. And I don't think it equates to what you're looking to do. It's more very short term and nearsighted, rather than affirming something that could help not only in that present moment, but even beyond that, from what I'm hearing. From any takeaways, but any thoughts, please share.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Ruben, that you make. because everything that we do, it's in duality. So if we use harsh language, the opposite of harsh language could be healthier, positive language. And so I think having more positive language, and I think even utilizing more such as positive reinforcements, or you're giving words of encouragement either to your team players or even to yourself, I think that creates a welcoming environment, not only in the present moment, but in the long run and long term. And it kind of sets this foundation for how you want to interact with others in other gaming environments that you might not feel so comfortable in, or you might be a novice in. Like for me, I'm a novice in the gaming, right? But I grew up with Street Fighter and Super Mario, but that's totally different from today. And so coming into an environment for those that don't have a lot of experience, that will create a more safe and welcoming environment, utilizing more positive language, because they might be more open to or just to kind of join in. And so really understanding like harsh language, it might be motivating and it might be a part or associated with competitive behaviors, but in the long run, it kind of sets the brain to be more attentive to that language. And so in order for us to reframe our thought process and to create more positive environments for our children and also for our parents to get more involved in the gaming world, I think having more positive language and learning how to use positive reinforcement and just say, hey, good job, or just words of encouragement really kind of reframes the gaming world. And it can turn out to be a really positive environment.
Yeah. Thank you, Monique, for rating. You said something really key there that I immediately just thought, that's a good point. In the sense that really what you're doing is setting that stage for an atmosphere and an environment, right? That's welcoming. And what it leads to is the ability to, again, gain more questions during that time of development. And questions are going to be fundamental if you're going to ever get quote unquote better at anything.
Yes.
And, as we know, sometimes, the questions, we're forming them as we go. It may not be completely sound questions, but sometimes we're just trying to essentially put words together to make a sentence to go, is this a question worth asking that could be helpful for the team to redirect some attention? And I don't think, again, short term, if we're doing it in a, again, the opposite direction of how we're trying to create this positive environment, then it could essentially lead to, well, I don't think I'm going to be asking questions anytime soon, because the environment is not so receptive of questions that may seem, starter, if you will, before it gets into a deeper rooted questions. So I love that you made that connection there. And for those that are listening too, at any point during our program, feel free to chat any questions. We're happy to ask. We have, Monique Turner, who's a professional in the space, and again, gives us great insight in how to essentially and elevate it beyond the game, as well as what I'm hearing as well.
Yeah. And just to kind of add, it also really speaks to our culture, right? In the gaming environment, we might have a different culture as with our family or with our friends or in a professional or a personal setting. And so really tapping into those cultural differences. And some cultures like to use more harsh language, and some cultures like to use more positive language. And it could be positive or negative. Again, those words are subjective to the individual of how you define them. But whatever it is, it could be based off your cultural upbringing, your traditions, your environment, even the location that you live in. And so it really helps us when we're more aware of our language. It helps us to understand our differences, and it helps us to connect within our differences. And so we don't want someone to join and not feel comfortable, but they might then join and say, oh, this is a part of your culture, I understand that, and then you're able to connect. And so I think being more aware of our language, even if we might choose to use a few words that are not healthy, right? Because sometimes we're not perfect, we might also engage in unhealthy language sometimes. And it's okay, but it's also okay to be aware of it so that we can be more conscious of our own behaviors and how we are accountable for our actions so that we can make changes where we see appropriate. So I just want to kind of add those cultural differences that might not be the same for everyone.
And thank you for adding that. That's such a good point. Again, when it comes to gaming, it's non-discriminatory. Really, anyone can play in a
Yeah.
team setting, and we're all coming from different backgrounds, and it even helps, for icebreaker purposes to just know, hey, let's get to know our team a little bit more beyond the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The game is what we get to share this common interest. It's part of knowing, again, your teammates, the people that are around you, to understand, okay, I can see myself inserting more communication efforts here. And ultimately too, just to add to that, you're giving someone an experience too, you're also receiving one. And so key in any communication is when you share something, and people will forget oftentimes what you say. It's really the feelings that you give them that they'll remember the most. And
Very
so
true.
I don't think negative words or anything related to something that you want to be remembered for, right? So
Right.
it's like we're choosing our words and stretching our words too, because sometimes I think you can only say good job so many times, right? Let's
Yes.
look at a synonym book and stretch, the positive affirmations that we can give to our fellow teammates and friends, whether you're doing it in a casual format.
Right.
But right on. And thank you for sharing that, Monique. Again, so key to know prematurely, like, hey, we need to know we're all coming different angles. We're all going to have different ways of communicating, but we're looking to find a fine-tuned method so that we can start pursuing,
Right.
longevity in a team environment.
Yeah.
But excellent. And if I may, Monique, I mean, again, you mentioned in this talk, again, emotional well-being, being able to, first of all, there's a lot of communication that happens verbally. I know there's various other modalities to communicate. If you don't mind, maybe sharing some helpful insights and perhaps tips, if you will,
Yeah.
that keep encouraging that kind of level of care.
Yeah, one of the main ones is positive affirmations that I think everyone can do independently. Because once we start to practice things independently, it starts to manifest within our interactions with others and our environment. And so positive affirmations are really helpful. Being able to kind of make a list of identifying different coping skills that you enjoy to do. And some of these coping skills can be cost free. And so that's a really great benefit of coping, is that you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to spend any money, and you don't really have to interact with others to focus on yourself. And I come back to the self, because if you are, as an individual, balanced within your emotions, you understand yourself, you're going to be more in tune to others' emotions and their experiences as well. And so once you start to practice it yourself, then you could begin to practice it with. And so again, healthy language, positive affirmations, and being able to identify coping skills, such as not gaming for 20 minutes, right? That might be a challenge for some, but it might also be healthy to step away from the game and maybe go talk to family members, or to reach out to a friend for 5 minutes and just see how they're doing, or check in with them. It could be drinking tea, drinking coffee if you choose to, reading a book, right? So it could be many different things that you can do, and you don't have to do it for the whole entire day. You can set maybe 15 to 20 minutes aside each day, and that helps to regulate your emotions, so that if you are gaming and you get upset, or if somebody says something that is unhealthy, you're able to redirect yourself to that place of peace that you develop while you were engaging in those coping skills. So I think that's really, really important, especially for health and wellness, psychologically, physically, and spiritually, for those that are connected in that way. It really helps to balance your mood.
No, and thank you again, sharing those tips. Those are really helpful as you're looking at, again, you're really going through an exploration in yourself
Yes.
and how you work with others too, because again, others are going through that same kind of journey,
Right.
maybe in different timing or maybe in the same timing. And when we think about connecting with one another, whether it's in person or online, or through a platform that allows you to do an activity,
Hmm.
again, everyone is going through their process to get there, right? It's not always just what you see in the interface.
Right.
It was a big victory because we just got online together
Yes.
and crossing our fingers and no disconnections and things of that nature. But if we think about gaming, really, again, there's an experience factor there that we enjoy, right?
Hmm.
For those that are listening, whether you call yourself an avid gamer or a novice gamer, there's an aspect, right? There's a challenge that presents itself. We want to achieve that challenge. And for some of the esports titled games, well, you do it in the team format, right? And that in itself, being that this is a space that we're looking at something, what we last want to do or ever think about is kind of spoiling that for others, right? When we're thinking about, hey, I'm not having the best kind of day, if you will, perhaps in the in game on the stat chart or what have you. But I don't necessarily need to convey that out there using choices of words that won't necessarily help myself or won't help
Definitely.
out others, because we all got here for a reason and we made it, right? And I think that's a big piece, is just to acknowledge just even the tiny successes to then really enjoy and relish the big ones that come after that, is a good way to continue the positive affirmation piece. And I guess for those that doesn't come natural, I think we should possibly even start having a more paying attention to those sound waves, if you will. If you hear it from a teammate, you don't know if that teammate needed that today, and to encourage it, even if you're not getting it reciprocated back.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to tell you to be quiet for telling them something complimentary, in the sense that we're achieving something today. Um, so it becomes very difficult to challenge that, if you will, if you're reinforcing it with positive manners. But anyhow, just throwing it out there as a note. But we are going to go very quickly, it sounds like, to a brief break. If we can, after this question, if you will, Monique, as you shared some of your examples, again, the online modality compared to how it transcends to the live modality or in-person modality. What I love is that you said, by doing this practice, you're going to essentially start taking on another embedded form of language that you then take with you.
Right.
Have you yourself noticed that more so, especially from, hey, what you do on your online, because there's different etiquettes and ways to acknowledge people in a space. How have you noticed that transcend, if you will?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it. I think it really relates to inclusivity, that you're more mindful that people are different, that people have different personalities, they have different ways of communicating. Some people don't communicate, and that's their way of communicating. And so you're just aware of a variation of types of communication. And it just kind of helps you to be more aware of who you are, either so that you can adjust or be able to update your own learning. And I think that's one of the skills that we all learn, especially in a gaming environment. We update, like we have an experience. And once we go out and experience more, we're able to take that knowledge or that learning, and we take it back and we update our own frontal lobe functioning. We update, we shift it, and we readjust, and we go out and do it again. And so our experience is teaching us more. And so I think coming from online environment to an in-person, you learn that it's a learning curve and you're able to kind of adjust accordingly. And so I really noticed inclusiveness being one of the things to kind of, how can we attract more people into the online environment? It's a little bit more easier to do in person because you're able to see nonverbal behaviors, you're able to see movements, right? But in online, if they don't have their video on, for example, you're not able to see that, or you're able to see their avatar and not actually see the person. And so you really have to be more aware. And I think you were kind of mentioning this as well, more aware to the Discord, right? And also listening to those sound waves of what you do here. And I think it really causes us and also myself to slow down, right? We live in a society where fast paced, we have to get things done. But once we start to slow down, and I think over the past year and a half, we've been forced to slow down so that we've had more time to develop within ourselves and to spend more time with ourselves, right, during the pandemic. And so we really have to train ourselves. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to go at a slow pace so that we can be more involved in the present moment. And so when you're more involved in the present moment, then you're more aware. And then that leads to emotion regulation and also more neural modulations in your own brain. And so you're able to kind of receive more information and process it and maybe not get upset as much or maybe not respond as much and listen more.
Gosh, I love it. I love it. We're just going to go on a quick commercial break. So don't go anywhere. And Monique, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And, we're going to pick this up in our next segment. So we will see you soon. Don't go anywhere.
All right, I'm ready.
Time to farm some dubs. Crap, I got a squad on my right.
I'm running in for backup.
Yo, Ron, he's right there in front of you.
Oh, sorry guys, it happened again.
Damn. This is the 10th one today.
All right, I'm back.
Someone cover me.
Yeah, I see you. You got him, you got him, you got him. Yes! Yo, that's sweet.
Yeah, it is. We about to win this.
Guys, I can get used to this.
HyperX alloy, built strong because it has to be.
Excellent. We are back. We are back. And for those that are just joining us, we have Monique Turner with us today. And she is currently sharing our key topic, which is the how to obtain one's emotional well-being. And we were going into deeper dives. And just to pick up from where we last left off, Monique, what you were sharing about some key comparisons and differences between doing the online modality as opposed to the in-person on-site. And the fact of the matter is, there are differences, and sometimes those differences, I think in many cases, because we, enjoy working in some cases with teams and groups and even larger groups, that we've been forced in some ways to ensure that we're slowing down so that those communication efforts are being well received, and knowing that there's a lot to communicate in the spaces of gaming. But what are those words that are going to be held together? What are those words that are going to bond a team? It could be a word that could trigger in the positive way or in the negative way. It really becomes picking, selectively those words to almost mean more than just the word, right? It's, but again, that the whole talk about just being mindful of each other's spaces to slow down and to also be more in the present mindset. So that way, hey, if I'm communicating with you online, you're with me online and not thinking other different things because distractions is inevitable. But making sure that those words become almost packaged with more meaning. So that way it's going to carry you beyond just a set of sequence, if you will.
And just to kind of expand on it a little bit, because I think you alluded to this a little bit about positive and negative. And so just to add to it is that it's subjective, right? one word can be viewed as positive. From another person's perspective, it could be negative. And so not really focusing on if it's positive or negative, but focusing on the intent of the word. What does that word do to the environment? What does the word do to the individual? And so some of the words to kind of help you to choose what might be good to use in a gaming environment, whether it's Discord or online, think about these concepts of unity, diversity, connection, right? What is going to connect us together? And so if you're using language or word that is not really leading to more connections, then that might be a sign, well, maybe I could use a different word. Let me look up a few synonyms. If it's not leading to more unity within the gaming environment, maybe I could look for another word to use or other language to utilize. And also diversity. Am I promoting one's differences or one's personality that is not like mine? And so thinking about unity, diversity, and connection, I think those words can guide one to choose language that is appropriate to utilize and to also utilize in their own body, right? So the language that we use is not only impacting others, but it's also impacting how we feel. And so if it's not promoting unity within yourself, diversity within yourself, and you're not connecting with yourself, then it's probably not going to connect and promote unity and diversity with others. And so really trying to get away from positive and negative, because I think it really leads to labels. And we live in a society with a lot of labels. And, we don't need to do that. We need to focus on unity, diversity, and connection, which brings us to love and which can change the environment that we live in, whether it be in a gaming, whether it be globally or personally.
Gosh, I love that. My goodness, such a mind shift, honestly, because you're right. We do think about it commonly in the perspective of, well, this is positive affirmation. Therefore, what's the opposite of that? We think of the opposites. I think you mentioned there's dual intention sometimes.
Yes.
And that right there is important to capture. And even what we presume sometimes can also can play a factor, if you will. But I love what you mentioned, because to me, what I'm hearing is a philosophy of adopting a new language that can be embedded with digital literacy, right? We know there's a ton to the world of gaming, and there's a lot of technical terms and game jargon. Even I think of one right now, GG, when we say, hey, good game to the opponent and to our teammates, that stuck, and I don't know where the origins lie. Actually, it would be a good thing to look up. But again, some place was always about, hey, sportsmanship. Hey, we got to always make sure that we acknowledge the fact that we made it here today, win or lose. And definitely something worth shifting mindsets and encouraging for those that are listening for the first time and you're looking to be part of a competitive team or just play casually with friends. There's going to be fun banter. That's just typical. But knowing that it doesn't cross certain lines, ultimately leading to what you just mentioned too, ultimately the strongest force that we have. Well said, Monique. Gosh. And perhaps, I mean, if you don't mind, Monique, this is a question that came in. Nobody's perfect, and we know that. So we're going to explore that a little bit, right? What to do in case that perhaps you're in a position, you're in a role that you're a captain, and this is a leadership role, and there's some pressure with that, and perhaps you're communicating and you're not yourself, and perhaps you're needing to backpedal a little bit, but now you're seeking for some form of forgiveness and moving on, right? Because now the choice of words weren't necessarily the best. How do you go about doing that to basically recovering?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question and a good space that a lot of people struggle with, whether it be in the gaming environment or just personal life. And so I think one of the main things is being genuine and being honest with yourself. And sometimes that process can be scary. that, I made a mistake. But if you are able to accept internally the mistake that you made, then you're able to share that with another person. And then it goes into accountability. And so, hey, I made a mistake. I'm accountable for my actions, and let's have a discussion, right? So it kind of opens up the door to, or those channels of communication to discuss more. And so and that really invites the other person in. And so duality again, it's not a individual kind of situation that you want to, in a way that you want to approach it. You want to have both person A and person B kind of communicate of what they can do better, so that the one that made the error, or the team lead made the error, can learn from their mistake and learn from one of the team members, right? And so it really even more promotes better communication, that you're learning from each other. And it also develops rapport between the group, right? The team. And so, one, being honest, accountability, and then having open dialogue, so that I would say like a combined collaborative plan can be developed. So in case it does happen again, hey, this is what we talked about. What's coming up for you that made you do it again. And so again, we're just continuously communicating so that we can be on the same frequency. And that's something that is also practiced in person, right? That our nervous systems can be combined together and balanced. And so then again, that goes back to emotion regulation. And it's the same thing within our communication. We want to be balanced and understand each other's language, even if it's different.
Gosh, I love what you just said there. Emotional regulation, right? It's we're composite through so many emotions, right? We feel things, and the experiences heighten those emotions.
Yes.
And sometimes we know that, okay, we can't get emotional. That's another pivot too of, when we say, well, take emotion out of the equation, can you really take emotion out of the equation? I guess when somebody shares that, what would you respond to that, especially as you're entering, let's say, a competitive space of gaming?
Yeah. Yeah. With competition, I think emotions are going to be there inevitably. But if you learn how the brain functions, and you learn your triggers, and you learn those different situations that embrace your healthy side, I think you are able to kind of create your own environment. And so in a way, you can begin to regulate your emotions in a way that they're not impacting you, but you can be aware. I don't think you can have experiences without emotions, so because they're so closely related with our experiences and where it's located in the brain, the amygdala. And so it's related to everything, right? The hippocampus, our memory, our experiences, how we process things in our body. And so it's really important to understand that emotions are going to be there, but you can learn how to regulate them. And so that's where the power of your executive function within your frontal lobe comes in, that you're able to regulate how those emotions are manifested, how they're experienced, and how they impact others. And so, no, I don't think we can have experiences without emotions. But once we become more aware, we're able to regulate them and control them a little bit better.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it's. I don't think we're robots, right? We can't just
right
turn it off and flip a switch. Like you said, the regulation piece, that piece in itself takes work. And you mentioned earlier on, coping skills, right? Key things to help you feel that you're regulating and coming to a space of reflection and conclusion finding, right? I need to learn what came out of that experience that maybe heightened the emotion, or made me feel a certain way that I didn't expect.
Exactly.
And I think, as you work closer with the team, especially for those that, are training together, or, you're developing your own self, coming with that understanding, like what can add value, I think that in itself will be an added value to everyone. It's like, hey, I can come in and tell you, hey, I'm great at this skill and that, but really it's the human skills that we oftentimes forget, you know what I mean? Like that are going to be key to any kind of competitive space. that it contributes to the team chemistry, really.
Correct. Yep.
Which ultimately looks amazing when you see them collaboratively working together and, showcasing what they've done, because, well, they got closer to that tightly knit community of communicating and creating that space for learning, understanding, and being receptive to it. But let me ask, Monique, I mean, because, teams are oftentimes developing, and for those that perhaps don't know, okay, we're developing in certain criterias in the game, but what other strategies can be implemented, perhaps, let's say, after the game, and the experience is all said and done, not afterwards, before we start another day of gameplay, that in that window of time, in that space, can be something that would help you, again, maintain your emotional well balance.
Yeah. And as you were speaking, another advice or tip could be journaling, right? And that's something that you could do independently. And for those that have trouble like identifying their emotions or getting in tune with their emotions, especially within a group dynamic, journaling is always good. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be words, it could be bullet points. It doesn't have to be sentences, but you want to jot down your experience, jot down how you felt, and maybe some thoughts that came up. But something that specifically can be done after each game is that you can have like a short team meeting to debrief, like what went on, what was your experience from the game. And it could be like 15 minutes. It could be via text, or it could be via Zoom where you guys meet together for 10 to 15 minutes and just kind of talk about your experiences. Did anything come up? How are people doing? And I think this also allows for the team members to get to know each other personally, because you're able to maybe see them, hopefully, if their video is on, to really check in with them. They might share something that happened to their sibling, and that could be a sense of support. And so what that really does, if you allow for a debriefing session, is it develops a community, a sense of support. And so as we are functioning individually in our lives, we all need support. The research indicates that if you have support, whether it be in person or even online or long distance, it really helps you to accomplish your goals. And it helps you to feel that internal motivation that you could do anything that you want to do. And so building a sense of support where we have communication, I think can help kind of within that period between games to kind of modify that or solidify those experiences.
Yeah, right on. I think, even just to add to that, and for those that are listening that, perhaps, esports is something that you're just barely exploring, or perhaps you fell into it and not thinking so much about it. Maybe just, hey, I like the game. I'm pretty good at this game. I'm going to transition into playing, competitively. That I think we forget that really in the forefront, we have now an opportunity to work with others, right? And some are intentionally looking for ways to improve their skills. And I think the skill sets that, get left on the table, if you will, are to explore and expand on the communication side and getting to know not just the game, but the human side of it, right? Which you just shared. That brings in that connection within your peers or within your other teammates. That becomes key. And ultimately, I hear things like, "I want to become a better gamer," and I think that's so broad, right? What does better really mean? And I think sometimes, what we're really trying to say is, I do want my skill sets to enhance, but really, how do I get that without the community out there to help support, foster it? You can only do it with support of others. Like you mentioned, you feel that internal confidence to think, okay, I'm tracking and seeing that I am shifting in mindsets, how I'm conveying messages across, carrying my skill sets to match my level of how I communicate with others, and also express concern if there's areas to be concerned about. But yeah, anywho, that's a big piece of the team bonding component that I greatly see a lot of opportunity for those that are listening for the first time, that you really have an opportunity there to build off of. Excellent. And again, Monique, again, it's balance, right? And that's a tricky one. Just because we can feel like we're riding the bicycle and we're balancing perfectly, riding. But then what happens when you tip off, right? What happens when you veer a little bit and you're something gives, right? And sometimes we don't attend to our emotional needs or the needs of others. What is it that one has to read into and kind of see the clues, if you will, when you're slipping into that direction or veering?
So I really think kind of observing your mood. And so if you notice that you're getting more irritated or you experience like more worrisome thoughts, or you have more emotions that are coming up that you can't describe them, or you feel like you want to isolate, you feel like you're doing things differently. So on a daily, you might get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have coffee or tea, you call your grandmother, and then you start to study, you start to exercise, and you do your work. So when you notice that something is changing in your daily routine, that might also be a sign that something is going on. And a part of that is understanding that it's okay. It's okay to be imbalanced sometimes. And I think a lot of people struggle with not being perfect. And that's how you learn your balance is not being perfect, right? And so understanding that it's okay. And I think that's the message that should be conveyed is like, if I'm off balance, it's okay. Now, what can I do to get back on balance? What can help me? What kind of support systems or resources are out there to help me to get back there? But definitely noticing any changes in your daily behavior, or if you're having more irritation, or maybe your significant other or your parents are saying, hey, I noticed, you're really mean for no reason. So all of those can be signs. Sometimes individually we can take it as a threat to us, and so we become defensive, right? But sometimes you might also take that as a sign that maybe I need to take time to self-reflect as well.
Gosh, right on. And again, you mentioned earlier too, a key tactic is even journalizing, right? Just being able to write down. Again, it's almost like a self-reflection book for you when you're entering in the space of whether it's, again, we'll take it outside of gaming, when you're working with a small group for a project, or you're working with a team related project. It can really mean anything. And it's just a way of, okay, I noticed that this was different today, and this constant has changed. And being able to find that is going to be, key for your own purposes to know, okay, I can tell I'm not myself.
Right.
Maybe I don't need to put myself into that space because it could do more damage than good, or it's a matter of, okay, I'm going to help navigate. If I'm quieter than usual, it's because I'm figuring something out and I'm processing. And I think that's typically the case with people that you mentioned. We move so fast that just processing alone becomes so evident before responding. Like, I think we want instant gratification and instant response, right? And sometimes it calls for it. Hey, if you're in a position, well, this is talking about the in-game. Yeah, you're gonna have to talk about where you're at in your position, but there's other adaptive problems that come about that you still have to process, and you need process time, you need think time, and it's okay to take that time to process before responding. That I think we forget sometimes because of the problems that we face on a day-to-day.
Right. Yeah. And then the other thing that I was going to add about the journaling is that it doesn't have to be words. It could be pictures that you cut out of magazines. It could be also art. It could be poetry. It could be stories. Anything that helps you to express whatever is inside, outside, and getting it on paper. And ultimately, like say for instance, one wants to write poetry about their experiences from esports. It could lead to a book that you could publish, right? And so think about it in that way, is like you're always doing something to better you. And you never know what will come of it, but you have to try it at least one time first.
Yeah, right on. It's your journey. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that idea. I got to put it out there for our students to definitely, you know, explore in this. As you think about new transitions, changes, new academic years, what have you, big things that are going to be amounting to in your life. Well, somehow we move so fast. Again, the journalizing through pictures or poetry or other means will help you remember the story that you told during that
Right.
particular time in your life, which is, you know, priceless, right? It's you can't go back in a time machine and go back, oh, I wish I would have done that. Well, you could do it. And again, reflect on it, laugh at it. You just become, you know, nostalgic around it because you remember that was what was paired in companionship to your experience. And that is something that becomes longer retaining. Um, gosh, I get inspired every time I talk to you, Monique, because it
thank
leads
you.
to generating great ideas of, okay, we've got to activate this.
Yes.
We got to encourage, we got to share, especially as we get closer to, you know, new semesters and new
Yes.
students and, you know, those that are transitioning to new campuses and, you know, new people.
Yes, yes. And
these are
again,
values.
it's
Yep.
a dual relationship, right?
Yeah.
So that connection with you as well, Ruben, I think elicits those associations in with anybody that we talk with, right? That's how we grow and we develop more. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Monique, I mean, we've got time perhaps for one more question.
Okay.
And this question comes from, you know, sometimes, you know, when it comes to nerves, and this is a question related to the competitive space, when it comes to nerves, you know, oftentimes you're told to take emotion out of it so that you can have nerves of steel. I love how they use that, nerves of steel. I think, you know, what is it that you share with that? Is it that they really take emotion out of it, or is it that they're able to self-contain it in a way that, you know, doesn't put them in a nervy situation?
Yeah, I think the latter is more so it. You're able to kind of suppress those reactions or inhibit those reactions and maybe address it later. And so I think that really goes back to self-regulation. In that moment, in order to respond or to make the correct move, those emotions might lead to a different train of thought process. And so, in order to be focused, you have to suppress those emotions and you have to focus on the game, focus on the goal, focus on the skill that you need at hand. And so, sometimes emotions can connect with that and then it becomes convoluted. So, I think really self regulating those emotions is possible. And then, but to go back and revisit, well, how did I feel in that moment? What emotion did I suppress? So don't just leave the emotion out there, right? You know, when you go into the pool and you bring your beach ball, it's like, well, mom bought me a beach ball. Don't just leave it there. Once you finish swimming, get the beach ball and take it back with you. And so it's the same type of thing with the emotions, is that you don't want to just leave them hanging there. You want to be able to address them, talk about them, and process them so that you can grow from them. So then when you're in another situation that triggers that emotion, you know what to do and you're automatically reframing your thought process to deal with it in a healthy way.
Gosh, well said. You know, as you shared that, it's again, you're not running away from emotions.
Right.
Your emotions are in you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Yes,
run away
yes.
from them.
You can't.
They're stuck. They're stuck. You
Yes.
take them with you, and you know you've got to live with it, and but it's how you choose to live with it, right? That's
Correct.
really where we come in to do these exercises to get us emotionally more intelligent, if you will. And so I love that analogy you just shared because you're right on. Yeah, when people say leave all your emotion out there, well, they forget to say, well, you're gonna have to bring it with you. And then you're
You're
gonna
gonna
have
have
to
to get
like,
it.
yeah, exactly. You're gonna then have to unpack it
Hmm.
so that you know what really went on during that time
Yep.
of perhaps in that moment of time, because it is time, where the emotions are really heightened and competitive edges come out. But anyhow, this was, oh my gosh, I noticed that this time, and I knew it would fly by extremely quickly. And I know, Monique, you're no stranger to us, your family, and so
Yes.
definitely have to bring you back on to share another session with us and for us to go into a deeper dive. Can't thank you enough what you do for our community and for what you do for a greater community as well beyond the school, as you know. And if you could, Monique, maybe just taking us home with just some words of wisdom. I feel like the whole program has been words of wisdom.
Okay.
Thank you for another set of words here.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for having me here today. It's always a joy to join the podcast. I always want to do this. And so, words of encouragement, I would just say be mindful of who you are. Be mindful of your thoughts, be mindful of your emotions, and learn to develop a relationship with the self. And through that, you can develop a better or more improved relationship with others in the gaming environment and also as a team. Always think about those three words: unity, diversity, and connection. We all need connection. And so learn to demonstrate behaviors and utilize language that lead to connection with others.
Gosh, well said. Can't thank you enough, Monique, for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And if I may, a big special shout out to Yusuf Andrews, our
Yes.
producer. Without Yusuf, none of this is possible either. So big shout outs to Yusuf. And for everybody too that joined us, thank you. And we'll
Thank you.
catch you on the next talk session.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.